Hey guys, Ribs here, coming at you with another Spire side chat. Today I want to talk about Piercing Wail, a card for Silent. Piercing Wail is fascinating to me because, I'll just spoil it right now, I guess. There's not really anything interesting about this card. It just mitigates damage for you. That, like, it's a little bit variable how much damage it mitigates for you, but basically that's all it does. And I have had so many people, people have asked me how good I think Piercing Wail is, and that's like, sure, okay, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's interesting, like, so many people ask me how good Piercing Wail is, but nobody ever bothers to ask me how good, like, something like Dodge and Roll is. Like, okay, sometimes some people do ask about this, but, like, this is just block 2, right? And this also basically just mitigates for you. So, and then I've had other people, like, share, like, extremely strong opinions with me about how good Piercing Wail is. I've had people say, like, it's extremely situational, and so it doesn't belong in a well-built deck, and I've had people talk about the exhaust element of the card and how it can't be a reliable source of mitigation, all this stuff, and it's just, like, it just blocks for you, basically. Like, that's all it does. It's not a complicated card, and so I've never understood any of the things I've heard people say about it that are, like, really strong, because really it just blocks. It's like a better version of block. The thing that does this unique is if you're getting attacked multiple times, so if an enemy is attacking you 4 times this turn, or if there are 3 different enemies attacking you this turn, Piercing Wail applies its mitigation to all of them at once. So it's a card which will block for 6 if you're just getting attacked once by one enemy, which is okay. It's not very good. It's not something to write home about. Or it might block for, 30 if you're getting attacked 5 times by, 3 different enemies, 2 of which are double attacking you. In which case, that's really good for 1 energy, obviously. That's the amount of block you get out of Impervious on Ironclad, a very strong mitigation rare on Ironclad, for 1 energy and a common. So yeah. That's like the upside. And that's where Piercing Wail gets interesting, because playing toward that upside can give you a lot of value. If you pair Piercing Wail with something like Well-Laid Plans, you can do some really nice mitigative tactics. But I want to reiterate, like, at worst it blocks for 6, and, at best it's still only blocking. Like, that's all it does. It's just, like, it's a super simple card. That's all I'm trying to say. Okay, so with that being said, I may have, like, scars from things that people have tried to tell me about Piercing Wail. Let's talk about some things that it does, which are just very simple and very strong upsides. One thing Piercing Wail does is it addresses a multi-attack from a boss like the Champion or the Awakened one. And for me, those are currently the toughest enemies in the game for Silent. The Awakened one deals me an average of 46 damage per encounter on Silent. I'm not sure what my win rate is, like how many times I've lost the fight against the Awakened one when I've walked into the fight with Silent, but probably pretty high. And the Champ deals me an average of 30 damage every encounter, which is higher than Time Eater, higher than Donu Deka, higher than Slime Boss, who's the next one. So the Champ and the Awakened are both extremely tough for Silent in my experience. The issue with the Champ is that once you get him halfway dead, he starts doing this incredibly strong execute attack, which attacks you 3 times in the same turn. Often you're vulnerable when he executes you, just because of how his cycle of actions works before he gets below half health. And this can hit you for like 27 times 3 or something like that. He's just cleansed weak from himself the turn before because of how his cycle of attacks works. And so this is very frightening. And Piercing Wail is a really nice counter to that. Against a 3x attack, Piercing Wail is going to block for 18 for 1 energy, which is very, very nice. Piercing Wail is actually worse when an enemy is weakened, because their strength doesn't create as much damage when they're weakened. And so the fact that he's not weakened means that Piercing Wail can be even higher value. Ideally, you want to get him weakened before the attack comes, but still, even if he's weakened, it's still going to be blocking for like 12, 13, 14 damage, whatever, for 1 energy, which is really nice. The last time I beat the champ, I had 2 Piercing Wails in my hand for when he executed, and I have a Well-Laid Plans Plus in my deck. And that allowed me to buy enough time for, you know, a considerable number more attacks to kill him before he did another huge attack against me. And that's quite strong. And, you know, Piercing Wail, this is a common. It's not hard to get a hold of. And Well-Laid Plans is just an uncommon, which is typically inoffensive and fine in your deck. And I'm telling you that this basically solved the, you know, second toughest fight in the game for Silent for me. So that's a potential huge upside that Piercing Wail has. And because of that, I do draft it somewhat highly, although not like mega highly. Looking at it now, Piercing Wail is my 18th highest priority card for Silent, so I'm generally quite happy to have it in my deck, but I don't think it does much more than avoid damage that's incoming against me. Yeah, it's a fine card. It's a fine card. The other really tough fight is the Awakened one, and the Awakened one is also defined by multi-attacks. The really scary thing about the Awakened one is that she gains 2 strength every time that you play a power, and a lot of the time as Silent, it's hard for you to put together a deck which doesn't rely in some way on powers, so that's something that you're probably feeding a bit of strength into. And then the Awakened one has a 4x attack, so that 2 strength that you've given for each power you played is coming at you 4 times in a turn. Every power you played is dealing you 8 damage on that turn. And so Piercing Wail against a 4x attack is obviously very, very strong. And there isn't really that much else to say about that, I guess. Piercing Wail is a valuable addition to any attempt by Silent to mitigate damage. And it's just a relatively low impact card otherwise. The fact that Silent is largely scaling off powers means that it's fine to just add bloat cards to your deck, because, you know, as you play through your deck, as your bloat cards keep you alive on those turns, you're getting your powers into play and scaling up and getting stronger. If you're not playing a Silent deck that scales off powers, it's likely that you're playing something that's trying to combo with poison and bursting catalysts and stuff. And again, you're very happy to have bloat cards in a deck like that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. They just keep you alive, and then you like play your Bouncing Flask and your Catalyst and you win. So yeah, Piercing Wail's just fine. Piercing Wail is a fine card, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. I don't think Piercing Wail is as strong as something like Backflip or Cloak and Dagger. These are cards which interact in very meaningful ways with vital resources like block and damage and card draw. And Piercing Wail just interacts with block, basically. Well, just interacts with mitigation. It interacts with preventing enemy damage. But it does a pretty good job of it. And most of the time, you're pretty happy to have a card that does that in your hand. And if you're not, for some reason, I talked in the Pen-Nib video I made a couple of days ago about how nice Skewer is, because when you have a card like Piercing Wail and you don't want to block with it, hey, you've got a Skewer and you can just dump all of your energy into damage. Something like Blaze is great too. You could dump all your energy into making the rest of the fight easier. So, conceptually, that's how I'm thinking about Piercing Wail. It's a strong mitigative common, which I'm happy to have many copies of in my deck. There really isn't that much else to say about it. There are lots of things you could say about it, like the fact that it exhausts means that if you're going for an infinite combo, then you don't draw Piercing Wail the second time through your deck or whatever. But that really isn't significant to me at Ascension 15. Like, silent decks at Ascension 15, for me, tend to get to a point where there are a good number of cards in them, and you're not really getting through them more than once or twice in a fight, and it just doesn't really matter that much that Piercing Wail exhausts, in my opinion. It exhausts and draws you an extra card if you have Dead Branch. That's sort of cute. Overall, I'd say that the fact that it exhausts is probably neutral for it. I don't think it... I mean, it has pros and it has cons, and I think they mostly balance themselves out. And yeah, that's it. I felt obligated to talk about Piercing Wail because so many people ask me about it and so many people have extremely strong opinions about it, but the fact is, like, this is really... it's just a common that mitigates for you. It doesn't synergize incredibly well with anything. It just mitigates pretty well. Yep. Take it if you want some mitigation. If you don't want to die, Piercing Wail might be nice. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I've been Joe on Ribs. And I hope to see you tomorrow. I have links to Discord and Twitch below the video and stuff like that. Let me know what you thought, what you think about Piercing Wail. Don't have an extremely strong opinion about how it's a very specific thing that's unique about, like, it just blocks. And I'll see you tomorrow for another Spire side chat. Bye, guys.